My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her sister's name before filing for divorce. Now she's claiming I'm the villain while I fight to keep my home and the only inheritance I ever received. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this story, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling, you know. Something just felt off. My wife Emily had always been a bit high maintenance, but lately she'd been acting strange, secretive texts, late nights, and a weird attitude toward money. At first I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed at work or just going through a phase, but deep down I knew something was wrong. One day I was at home, working late in my office, when I decided to check our joint bank account out of curiosity. Nothing unusual usually, but then I saw it. A transfer of $250, $0 from our account to someone named Lisa, her sister. I froze. That's a lot of money. I knew Lisa was struggling financially, but I didn't expect Emily to just transfer that kind of cash without telling me. I felt my stomach tighten. I called Emily that night asking her about it, and she told me it was a loan for Lisa's new business. I pressed her, but she kept insisting it was a family matter and that I had no right to question her. That wasn't the only thing. Over the past few weeks, I'd noticed her phone buzzing constantly, even when she was in the shower. She'd hide her screen when I walked into the room. I found her texting someone late at night, and when I peeked, I saw messages that weren't just friendly. They were intimate, flirtatious even. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife Emily was cheating on me with my best friend Jason. That was the moment everything shattered. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't confront her right then. Instead, I started digging, trying to find more evidence. I installed a tracker on her phone, which felt wrong, but I needed to know the truth. And what I found was worse than I expected. She was meeting Jason in secret, sometimes twice a week, always late at night. Their conversations were filled with talk of sex, plans to hide what they were doing, and even jokes about how I'd never suspect a thing. The betrayal hit me hard. I thought I knew her, but I was just blind. The next day, I decided I had to confront her. I sat her down in our living room, heart pounding. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money transfer, everything. Her reaction was pure bullshit. She looked me right in the eyes and lied through her teeth, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Jason was just a friend, and that the money transfer was a mistake she made in a moment of panic. She called me crazy, said I was overreacting, but I knew better. I saw the texts, the bank statements, the way she avoided my gaze when I asked her directly. She was lying, and I was furious. The emotional fallout was intense. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal that's hard to put into words. My trust in her was shattered. I kept replaying the moments I thought were normal, questioning everything. Was our whole marriage a lie? How could she do this to me? To us, I was angry at Jason, at her, at myself for not seeing it sooner. But mostly I was devastated. I'd given her everything, my love, my life savings, my future, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. It felt like my entire world was crumbling. I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to decide what to do next. I was angry enough to end everything immediately, but part of me still hoped I could salvage some dignity. I started thinking about the money transfer, the inheritance I'd never expected to get, and how she was planning to leave me with nothing. I realized I had to act fast if I wanted to protect what was mine. I began planning my next move, knowing that whatever I did, my life was about to change forever. After that confrontation, things didn't just settle down, they exploded. Emily kept up her lies, trying to act innocent, but I saw through her. She was good at pretending, but I knew her too well. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, and that Jason was just a buddy she'd been talking to for years. Yeah, right, I caught her in so many lies that I started to feel like I was losing my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I started digging into the bank records more, trying to understand the extent of her betrayal. The $250, $0 transfer was just the beginning. I found out she transferred money from our joint account to her sister Lisa's account before she even told me she wanted a divorce. I couldn't believe it. She was planning to leave me with nothing, our house, our savings, the inheritance I never even knew I had. The more I looked into it, the angrier I got. I'd always been careful with money, worked hard, and thought we were solid. Turns out, Emily had been planning her escape for months, quietly siphoning off our funds and hiding her tracks. I found emails and texts where she was talking about getting everything ready and making sure we're both taken care of, but it was clear she meant herself and her sister, not me. I started feeling the full weight of betrayal. It wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that she'd been manipulating the money, lying too. My face and plotting her exit while I was clueless. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly? I'd been blind, trusting her with everything. All the years we built, all the plans we made, she was just using me. I was furious but also hurt. Deep down, I felt like I'd lost my wife and my partner in one shot. At that point, I knew I had to act. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started talking to a lawyer the next day, gathering evidence, trying to understand my legal rights. I knew she was planning to file for divorce soon, and I had to be prepared. I also discovered she'd been secretly talking to a divorce attorney, trying to get her ducks in a row. She was serious about walking away with everything, leaving me with nothing but a broken heart and a pile of lies. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I decided that I'd confront her again, this time with proof. I wanted her to see I wasn't going to be a pushover. I also planned to freeze her accounts, get a court order, to prevent her from transferring any more money and make sure she couldn't just walk away with our assets. I wasn't about to let her do this without consequences. The betrayal had cut deep enough. Now I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. In the meantime, I kept my cool around her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I played it calm, collected, and focused. I knew that once I had all the evidence, I'd be able to show the court exactly what she'd done, including her affair with Jason and her financial manipulations. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to let her ruin my life without a fight. The emotional toll was huge, but I knew I had to stay strong, for myself, and for whatever was left of what we once had. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep her deception ran. Emily was not just cheating on me. She was orchestrating her escape with precision. She'd been planning this for months, hiding her tracks, transferring money, and lying about her whereabouts. I found emails where she talked about getting everything in order and making sure Jason is ready to help her move on. It was like a blueprint of betrayal. One night I caught her sneaking around again, this time with her phone in her hand, whispering into it. I couldn't see who she was talking to, but I knew it was Jason. I'd seen enough to know their secret meetings had become more frequent. It was like she was trying to set the stage for her new life, leaving me, taking the money, and pretending she was innocent all along. I decided I had enough. I sat her down again, this time with the evidence spread out on the table. I confronted her directly. Her reaction was classic Emily. She burst into tears, begged, lied, and accused me of being paranoid. She said the money transfer was just a loan to her sister, that Jason was just a friend, and that I was overreacting because I didn't trust her. She even called me controlling and jealous, trying to turn the tables, but I wasn't buying it. I had proof: bank statements, texts, emails. I knew everything. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. I felt shock, rage, and a profound sadness all at once. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? I'd given her everything: my trust, my love, my savings. And now I was staring at the wreckage of what I thought was a happy marriage. I wondered what I'd done wrong, but deep down I knew it wasn't about me. It was her greed, her selfishness, her lies. I sat there trying to process what I'd uncovered. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I thought about all the nights I stayed up worrying about her, all the moments I thought she was just stressed or tired. Turns out she was unfaithful, dishonest, and planning her escape behind my back. I felt like a fool. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been sneaking around with my best friend, Jason. The thought of them together made my stomach turn. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't just sit around and let her walk away with everything: our house, our savings, the inheritance I'd never even known about until now. I decided I'd fight for my rights. I contacted a lawyer, showed her the evidence, and prepared for the divorce proceedings. I wanted her to face the consequences of her lies and her betrayal. I also started to think about how I'd rebuild my life afterward, because I knew this wasn't just a temporary setback, it was a complete upheaval. As I looked at her, crying and denying everything, I realized something important. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was hurt, but I was also determined. She lied to my face, cheated on me with my best friend, and tried to take everything I had. But I still had my dignity, and I was going to fight to keep what was mine. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. The next few days were a blur of lawyers, bank calls, and trying to keep my head straight. I couldn't believe how quickly everything was falling apart. Emily was still insisting she was innocent, still claiming I was paranoid, and still trying to spin her lies. She'd throw tantrums, cry, and then suddenly switch to acting like the victim, blaming me for not trusting her. It was like she was trying to manipulate everyone around her, including the lawyer I hired. I knew I had to be strategic. The first thing I did was file a temporary restraining order to prevent her from transferring any more money or assets. I also made sure to freeze her account so she couldn't drain anything further. Meanwhile, I kept gathering evidence, more texts, more bank statements, even some recordings of her talking to Jason about getting out of town, and making sure everything looks good for the divorce. It was all piling up, and I knew I had to be prepared for her to try and spin her way out of this. What really set me off was discovering that she'd already been secretly transferring money from our joint account to her sister Lisa's account before she even told me she wanted a divorce. That's when I realized just how much she'd been planning this. She was trying to make it look like she was innocent, but her actions proved otherwise. She'd been sneaking around, hiding the truth, and stacking the deck in her favor. I felt like I'd been punched again, only this time emotionally. I'd trusted her, and she'd used that trust to betray me in the worst way possible. I also found out she'd been talking to a divorce lawyer behind my back, trying to set up her escape route. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast and be one step ahead. I wasn't going to let her take everything without a fight. I started preparing my case, documenting everything, making copies of all the evidence, and consulting with my lawyer about how to protect my rights and the inheritance I'd never even known I was entitled to. Honestly, the hardest part was the emotional toll. Every time I thought I was starting to get a grip, another shock came. Finding out about her affair, then the money theft, then her lies, it felt like my world was crumbling piece by piece. I kept replaying all the moments I thought were normal, questioning every memory. How could she have done this? How could I have been so blind? I felt a kind of despair mixed with rage, and I knew I had to stay strong for myself. I couldn't let her win by breaking me completely. I also reached out to my parents and close friends for support. They couldn't believe what she'd done either. Some told me to just walk away, start over, and forget about her. Others urged me to fight for every penny, for the house, for the inheritance. I realized I had to decide what mattered most: my dignity, my future, or just giving up because it was easier. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of thinking she could destroy me and walk away unscathed. I was determined to stand my ground. At the end of the day, I knew this was only the beginning. The storm was far from over, and Emily's lies were still unraveling. But I was starting to see a way forward, a way to reclaim what was mine, and maybe, just maybe, rebuild my life from the wreckage. It was going to be a long road, but I was ready to fight for it. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I had all my evidence lined up. Emily's attempts to deny everything grew more desperate, but I had the truth on my side. She started playing the victim, crying to friends and family about how I was trying to ruin her, but I knew better. I had the bank statements, the messages, the transfer records. She was caught in her lies, and I wasn't about to let her spin her way out of it. The day the court scheduled a hearing for the divorce and asset protection, I was nervous but resolved. I sat there across from her, watching her fake tears and fake concern, knowing she was just trying to manipulate the situation. My lawyer presented everything: the evidence of the affair, the money transfers, her secret meetings with Jason. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be played anymore. Meanwhile, Emily kept insisting she was innocent, claiming that I was just paranoid, that she'd never cheat or steal from me. She said I was crazy and possessive, trying to paint me as the villain. But her words rang hollow. I knew her game now. She was trying to spin her lies to get what she wanted: the house, the inheritance, and freedom without consequences. But I had the evidence, and I made sure the court saw it. The judge issued an order to freeze her assets and prevent her from transferring any more money. He also scheduled a hearing to decide on the division of property, including the house and the inheritance I'd never even known about until now. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I knew I had a fighting chance. Dread because I knew this wasn't over yet. Emily was going to do everything she could to weasel her way out of losing what she wanted. In the days that followed, she continued her manipulative tactics. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining her life, and accused me of trying to control her. She even claimed I was abusive, which was laughable. I never hit her, never raised my voice. All I ever wanted was honesty and respect. But she was good at twisting the truth, making herself look like the victim. That's what made it so hard, knowing she was lying, and I couldn't do anything to stop her from spinning her web. Throughout all this, I kept my focus on protecting what was mine. I contacted a financial advisor to make sure I could safeguard the inheritance, and I started planning my next steps. I knew I'd need to fight hard in court, but I also knew I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I had to stay calm, collected, and prepared for whatever she threw my way. The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been living in her shadow, trusting her blindly. Now I was finally seeing her for what she really was: a liar, a cheat, and a user. And I was learning that standing up for yourself, even when it's painful, is the only way to truly move forward. I was ready to face whatever came next, because I knew I deserved better than her lies and betrayal. The final court date arrived, and I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and relief. After everything, her affair, the money transfer, the lies, the manipulations, I was finally standing in front of a judge, fighting to keep what was rightfully mine. Emily was there, her face a mask of fake innocence, but I knew better. She thought she could manipulate her way out of it, but she underestimated how much evidence I had accumulated. The courtroom was tense. My lawyer laid out everything: proof of her affair with Jason, the unauthorized transfer of $250, $0 to her sister Lisa, her attempts to hide assets, and her lies about the divorce. Emily tried to deny everything, but her stories kept falling apart under the weight of the facts. She even tried to spin the affair as a mistake, claiming she was confused, but I knew the truth. It wasn't a mistake, it was calculated. Her entire plan was to take everything I had and walk away. The judge was stern. He ordered her to return the money she transferred and to cease any further transfer of assets. He awarded me the house, which I fought hard to keep, and ordered her to pay a fair division of our savings and inheritance. I was relieved to hear that I'd retained the inheritance I never even knew I had, and that the house was mine to stay in. It felt like a victory, but honestly, it was more like a long overdue correction of the chaos she'd caused. As she was leaving the courtroom, Emily tried to guilt me one last time, crying about how I ruined her life and destroyed her future. I looked at her and felt nothing but cold. I'd been betrayed in the worst ways possible, and I was tired of her lies. The woman I once loved had become a stranger, a manipulator, a thief. I realized that sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from someone who no longer deserves your trust or love. In the aftermath, I focused on rebuilding. I sold the house to pay off debts and stabilize my finances. I cut all ties with Emily, moving forward with a clearer mind and a stronger sense of self. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but I learned a lot from the experience. Trust is fragile, and it's vital to protect yourself from those who only want to use you. I also learned that justice isn't always easy, but persistence and honesty can help you reclaim what's yours. Looking back, I see this as a hard but necessary lesson. I lost a wife, yes, but I gained clarity, strength, and a new sense of independence. The betrayal opened my eyes to the importance of vigilance and self-worth. Now I focus on my future, knowing I fought for what I deserved and that I'm better off without her lies. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also sets you free.